Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette. And we're back for another episode of our podcast here. We're going to look ahead to Wisconsin, discuss a little bit of what's been kind of going on with Malachi Coleman and some of the other kind of off the field issues, I guess you could say, with Nebraska football, which seem to always be percolating. So we'll get into all of that stuff. So before we do, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and get into the comment section and let us know your thoughts. But yeah, I guess we can start with Malachi Coleman since that's kind of the hotter topic of conversation. So the Platinum Board came out on Wednesday saying that Malachi is no longer on the team and that he will be entering the transfer portal. It hasn't been confirmed by any major outlets, but Sean Callahan basically, confirmed it. He said that Nebraska's not going to confirm players entering the portal. Yeah. Malachi's not talking. So I guess we'll see one way or another on Saturday if he's on the field or not. But I mean, it seems to track. And I feel like if it wasn't going to happen, I feel like Sean Callahan or somebody would have probably stamped it out. So, I mean, it hasn't been 100% confirmed by anybody. It is a report from the Platinum Board. But anyways, if it does end up being true, what do you think, Danny? What are your thoughts on it?
I know you and I kind of differ on this, but I'm not too worried with the talent coming in. I'm not worried. I don't want it to. I didn't want it to see it end this way. To be clear, I think he is a talented player, but he came with a lot of baggage, both in terms of injuries and maybe some stuff off the field. So while it sucks, no doubt, there is more talent on the way. You heard Dawson Merritt talk about it yesterday, speaking to Adam Carricker, and I just wish him the best of luck. And Nebraska's got guys coming, so I'm not too worried from a production standpoint.
I mean, yeah, I wish him luck too if that is the case. I just think it's a missed opportunity, and I don't buy all that stuff of that he has off the field baggage. I mean, I can see, if he's hurt or whatever, but people have all these narratives about him that he doesn't practice when he feels like it or whatever. And I just like, there's no evidence to suggest that that's true. I mean, that really is just a made up narrative about the kid. He played last year. He made an impact on the field. He had a 40-yard touchdown in a key game. And then this year, and it's not like, I mean, let's look at the situation here. Nebraska has literally nobody that can get open playing on the field except Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, just get out of here with Jabal Banks and Isaiah Nair. They're busts. They were absolute busts. Nebraska should not have recruited them out of the transfer portal. They haven't contributed basically anything. They can't get open. They can't catch the football. So to me,
they haven't contributed basically anything is a little bit. I don't know. That's a little bit of a stretch because if you remember Nair in the first couple of games, he was Raiola's favorite target, and I think he has like 4 touchdowns on the year.
Yeah, I mean, against like UTEP. But what has he done since Big Ten play started? What have either of these guys done since the Big Ten play started? I mean, like, really? Like, they haven't been an upgrade. And they really, I mean, like, how many times has Matt Rule talked about how they struggle against man coverage and they can't beat man coverage? It's like, so, I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, they did produce some, I mean, yeah, like Jamal Banks looked great against UTEP and they looked great against, whoever else they played at the start of the season. But against like legitimate opponents, they really haven't done much. And so, I mean, the only guy who's consistently been getting open is Ja'Cory Barney, and Jalen Lloyd had a really nice catch last week, which made me wonder why he hasn't seen the field at all after him and Marvin Harrison Jr. were the only guys in the Big Ten last year that had 3 catches of over 50 yards. So to me, that's kind of, all wrapped up into this. Is like, why are young guys not getting on the field? And I do think part of it is Garrett McGuire. And yeah, some guys are going to bust out. Maybe we'll see what happens with Malachi Coleman. If he ends up busting somewhere else, then yeah, it wasn't the fault of this coaching staff. But it's not like he's the only guy who has regressed on this team. I'll just say that. I don't think that that's unfair to say. There's a lot of guys that have regressed from that 2023 class, or that haven't regressed, but they haven't taken that second-year leap. I mean, Princewell, Umameli, and Cameron Leonard have 1 sack this year. Riley Van Poppel can't get on the field. I mean, Jalen Lloyd, hasn't been able to get on the field either. So it's just like where, these guys should be starting to make contributions. And those are some of the best players that were recruited in that class, and they haven't been. So, I mean, to me, I think that's a little concerning, especially after they all played last year too. And it's not like, yeah, it'd be one thing if there was a massive upgrade at receiver and Jamal Banks and Isaiah Nair were really good, but they're not. They're not good Big Ten receivers. They're just not.
No, to say that I think the Malachi Coleman issue is a little bit different than, the whole regression topic. I do think that's a fair discussion to have in terms of regression and lack of development. But I think Coleman is a bigger issue, and I'm not going to speculate. I've heard some things and whatever, but you know, I think Coleman needs a fresh start, and I hope he gets it somewhere else. Um, I just don't think for whatever reason he was able to find success here at Nebraska.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens with him in the future, but they have got to. I mean, it's just annoying that you have, I don't know, just constant, off-field drama, and then you have Dana Holgerson basically, calling out Garrett McGuire and EJ Barthel for essentially just not even coaching the team, like not coaching their players. I mean, like, it's pretty bad when someone has to come off the street and say that the blocking is embarrassing, in the wide receiver room when it's apparent to every person who's watched the team. So it's like, I don't know. I mean, and I get what you're saying, but it's also like he's like one of the most talented players on this roster, and it's just frustrating that they got so little out of him, and that he's not the only one that's happening with.
Maybe he isn't. I can understand you say you going about for rather than Popple, because I always thought that was an interesting decision to redshirt him. But I mean, at the beginning of the season, Coleman was at the bottom of the depth chart, and Ja'Cory Barney was ahead of him. So maybe he really isn't.
Well,
That's
I mean,
not
yeah,
to say, that's not to say he isn't talented, but maybe he's not one of the most talented players on on this wide receiver or in this wide receiver room. Excuse me, and. Garrett McGuire is, I don't think, a good X's and O's coach, but he's a damn good recruiter. And I think that speaks to what they've been able to do in the wide receiver room. And quite honestly, I think we might see some more in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we'll see. I just go back to what Matt Rule said about, athletes. And if a guy's a great athlete, I should be able to make him a great football player. Well, you can't deny the Malachi Coleman is a great athlete. I mean, 6'5", 200 pounds, runs 4.39. I mean, he's a great athlete. So, whether he should have been a receiver or not somewhere else, like I still think there's a chance for someone to make him a really good player. So we'll see what happens. But I still think it's a bad look for the coaching staff when, your number one recruit, who was a pretty productive player as a freshman, just, regresses and is off the team like that. I just don't, it's not, I mean, I get it's not entirely their fault, but I do think that they do. I don't think you can, I don't think you can put all the blame on Malachi Coleman either. It's not fair to say it's just Garrett McGuire, but I don't think it's fair to say it's just Malachi Coleman's fault either. Like at some point, you have to try to develop these guys too.
That's fair, but I don't think, like you said, I think it's a middle ground. I don't think it's fair to say the coaching staff didn't develop this guy, because I don't want to say what I want to say, but I'll just say that I don't think it's only a coaching staff thing, and depending on the coaching staff is kind of tough.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but you're also coaching 18-year-old kids. Like that's part of the job. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's going to be really disappointing if he goes to another coaching staff and they are able to, motivate him and get it out of him. That's all I'm saying. It's coaching is not just about the X's and O's, right? I mean, there's motivating, there's all those other things. Like that's a huge part of what coaching is. And for whatever reason, I don't know. It's just I feel like that the staff is not great in some of those things. I don't know. It's just there's just a lot of weird vibes with this team. And I feel like the culture is not, I don't know. I just feel like the culture is not where it needs to be.
So get those players out, because I can think of about 5 or 6 names that I would want to ship out right now.
Like who?
Ty Robinson. I mean, he's done great things, but I think there's a sector of players that is going to leave, that needs to be out of the program. The Isaac Giffords, Ty Robinsons, the Nash Hutmaker, they've been productive, but they don't know how to win. And I think the faster we get these players out, the better.
Yeah, I don't know if I really buy into the player. I don't know. I just I get it, but I don't know. To me,
Even
Ty Robinson's one of our
coming
best
back,
players.
I mean, I understand and I get Butler coming back is going to help the defensive line. So I shouldn't even said Butler, more like Marquise Buford. I don't know if I want Buford back.
I mean, I don't know if
Butler
that's a mindset thing. I mean,
the defensive line, but
if it's a mindset thing, again, that goes back to coaching. Like, I mean, because here's the thing, like, do you really think like, say, and people don't like this example, but if Jim Harbaugh was the Nebraska coach the last 2 years, they wouldn't have won like 9 games this year and last year, because they would have 8 or 9 wins. Absolutely. 100%. Stone cold lock.
Okay.
Like, you don't think that? You don't think that Jim Harbaugh would have won 8, 9 games last year with this team?
Last year with this team, no. This year, probably, yeah.
I mean, they had 5 1-score games last year. I mean,
you still had Heinrich Harburg.
Yeah, but they still had the lead in a lot of those games. I mean, you were up on, I
I don't like that example either. You can add me to that list because I don't think last year they wouldn't have. This year, probably.
I mean, 7. Fine, 7 wins. 7 wins.
9 games.
PJ Fleck won 7 games last year with that team.
Yeah. 9 games. Hell no. 7. Yeah.
I mean, 7. I don't think there's that big a difference between 7 and 8. I mean, maybe 9 was a stretch, but I mean 8. And this year, I think they definitely would have won a lot more games. And so that's like my thing is I'm not saying like that Nebraska could get that coach, but if they had PJ Fleck, they'd be bowl eligible right now. I believe that in my heart of hearts. Like, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I would buy that.
Yeah, and so it's like so I don't know. Like it just I don't know. And I can't even remember where we started on that conversation, but like with the Ty Robinson stuff, like yeah, but with those guys, like I don't know, good coaches. To me, Ty Robinson is a good player. He is the absolute last thing that is wrong with this problem. He's the best player on the defense. Like, I mean, without him, this defense would be absolutely terrible. I mean, and it's not great as it is. Like, it can be good, but
I was gonna say this defense.
But I don't know. Like, so I just don't get that mindset of like, I mean. I just feel like good coaches
don't know how to win games. It's not that they don't.
Coaches, why have the coaches not taught them how to win? I thought Matt Rule was a winner. Why he's been here for 2.5 years? That's what I'm saying, man. Like I feel like if you have a good coach, a really truly good coach, the entire team is better the day that man walks through the door, and that just hasn't happened here. I mean, it happened a little bit, I guess, but like really, I think that in some ways, people. Like that, like Scott Frost's team, like the team in 2021, like that was a pretty good team. I mean, I know they went 3-9, but it wasn't like that team didn't have some players on it. Like I feel like sometimes people like make it out like Scott Frost, left this like Nebraska football was like SMU after the death penalty or something. Like that it would have been impossible for a quality coach to come in here and like win right away. And I just don't think that that's true.
I mean, Scott Frost did leave the cupboard bare. I will say that. And there have been better recruiting efforts, obviously Raiola and even Van Poppel, Vincent Shavers, and things like that. But and I'm not saying the coaches should be absolved of all of this, but I am saying it's tough because these players don't know how to win, but the coaches should teach them how to win. And yet, I feel like once these players leave the program, the better.
I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not convinced, but we'll see. Because they don't have anybody that can beat Ty Robinson on this team or Nash Shotmaker. Like that's the thing. So, I don't know. Are they going to find somebody in the portal? Are they going to develop one of these guys to be that? I don't know. We'll see. It's just a lot of interesting things happening. And I don't know. Matt Rule looks real jumpy right now to me. Maybe that's not the word I was looking for, but he doesn't look very comfortable in his skin right now. And it's just, I don't know. They need to win this game against Wisconsin. So let's talk about that. And right now they're a 2.5-point favorite. Nebraska is. And, not even talking about keys or whatever, but like to me, I'm convinced that whichever team runs the ball better is going to win this game. Like, I just think that that's how it's going to play out. And, gun to my head, I feel like that's probably going to be Wisconsin. So I hope that's not the case. I do look at, a couple of examples like the Colorado game, like the Ohio State game, where this team really did play and looked like an elite defense. And that's the kind of effort that they need on Saturday. That's just, they need to run the football well on offense, and they need that defense to show up like they did in those 2 games, or it's going to be tough because even though Wisconsin's looking bad, they nearly beat Oregon last week. So,
yeah, no, Oregon did not look good last week, but the defense needs to be a little bit better. The coverage needs to be a little bit better. I saw that they moved Buford back to safety, which I think will help. I think he's more of a natural, safety player. And I think for the offense, it's just about building on what they started last week. There were some good things. I know people want to say, oh, they scored X amount of points and blah, blah, blah. But I liked the routes and the passing concepts. And I thought that, it was a little bit easier for Raiola to make plays in terms of play design. Whether or not he actually makes them is another story. But I liked the play design last week, so I'm curious to see how the offense can build on it this week.
Yeah, hopefully they can. They need to find a way to score points, in the red zone. And when other teams when the defense actually gives them the ball in opportune positions, like they've got to score. You cannot be kicking field goals when the offense gets the ball at the 15-yard line or the 5-yard line, like the Ohio State game. Like you just have to score touchdowns in those situations, and they haven't been able to do it. So we'll see what happens. That's the most interesting thing to me is can they finally figure out a way, when they get inside the 30-yard line, when they get across the 50, to score points and not, kick field goals and do all that type of stuff, like actually get touchdowns. And they did get the screenplay, kind of the explosive play last week, which got them into the end zone, but they still, with Holgorsen, they have yet to like have a goal to go situation where they've been able to kind of punch it in. So hopefully they can find a way there. And I'm interested to see who kind of this young guy or this new guy that Holgersen's been talking about. I've read that it's Quinn Clark, which wouldn't surprise me at all. I guess it would surprise me a little bit just to see him, jump over some other guys. But, he is a guy like Malachi Coleman in a lot of ways who has all the ability in the world. So it'll be interesting to see if that is the guy he's talking about or if it's somebody else.
Geranium Bonner's been getting good praise from the coaching staff as well over the course of this week. So I'm curious to see how they incorporate him too. They've used him in a couple of red zone situations this year, and he's fast, he's big, he's physical. So I'm curious to see what impact he has in the game, even if it's a minimal one.
And I also keep wondering, they because Holgersen basically kind of called out the receivers too, but he's been calling out the running backs as well. And so I'm wondering if a Quentin Ives or a Nelson, Mekhi Nelson,
Yep.
Mekhi Nelson, if one of those guys could maybe emerge, but I don't know. They just need somebody who can create an explosive play. Quinn Clark can do that. I mean, which is really, and it is interesting because he's a guy who's got all the, he's a high jump state champion, football, basketball player. He kind of has has been dogged with a lot of the same, the same rumors as Malachi Coleman. Honestly, a lot of people in Montana or whatever say a lot of the same things about Quinn Clark that people in Nebraska say. So I guess if he's getting his way on the field, I guess that would, be an argument against what I've been saying against Malachi Coleman. So, I mean, that'll be something to, to bear watching. But yeah, he has all the talent in the world, and he's a truly tremendous athlete. So hopefully, I don't care. Somebody needs to get on the field that can create an explosive play. I'm honestly hoping he's talking about Jalen Lloyd, even though he did play last week. So I don't know. I'm not trying to put too much stock into what like Holgersen or like try to like analyze it.
Decipher what he says.
Yeah, decipher it too much, but like I don't know if he's being like, oh, Jalen Lloyd caught this pass, so he showed me something, and I'm gonna play him more. Like I don't, you know what I mean? But yeah, I hope so, because man, that was a nice catch. And like we haven't seen very many, and I know Jalen Lloyd had the play where he didn't make the play for his quarterback, and I want to say that was Northern Iowa, maybe.
Yes, it was,
yeah. So I mean, like but last week he did. So I just feel like, man, like, well, some of these crossing routes and stuff that they're doing, like, why aren't they giving the ball or why aren't they letting him run some of those routes? I'm not saying that they haven't, but it just seems like I feel like he deserves a chance to make some plays.
I feel bad for him going across the middle though with his size. Honestly, like all joking aside, like I feel bad sometimes. But what was the play right before halftime? It was the beginning of the season, and Raiola threw one up. It was and Lloyd came back to the ball, caught it, and was in the red zone automatically. Was that the Colorado game? If I'm not mistaken, it was right before halftime.
It might have been because he did have a big catch in one of those games.
I think
I just can't remember.
Yeah, that was another one that I remember too. But unfortunately, the Northern Iowa sticks.
That might have been. I think the one you're thinking of was to Barney. I'm not sure though. I can't remember. Barney's made a few really big plays down.
Either way, they need to have some sort of combo of those two on the field.
I think so too, because they threaten you with speed. And that's the thing is like once Jalen Lloyd gets the ball in his hands, I mean, he showed last year, like he can make things happen with it.
Yeah. So, I'm wondering if it's Quinn Clark. That's a name that I've heard, as someone that Holgersen could be talking about. I'm wondering if somebody else, but either way, I'd love to see some of these more explosive guys get on the field. Because I mean, you called, Quinn Clark Malachi 2.0 in terms of what he could bring on the field. So
yeah, I mean 6'5", 6. I mean, he might even be pushing 6'6", probably 6'5", but he's very big, tall kid, and yeah, like I said, he won the state championship last year in the long jump. I'm pretty sure it's what it was. And yeah, I've seen him, take over football games. I've covered him personally as a high school player, so he's one of my favorites. His coach also told me that once they were doing like their kicking drills or whatever, and he just stepped up without any practice and nailed like a 52-yarder, and he was like the team's best punter.
That's crazy.
So I mean, he is that kind of athlete, like he was punting for, like he was pinning the ball inside like the thigh. I remember one of the games I watched him play, actually, he might have made a bigger impact as the punter just because he didn't get a ton of passes thrown his way, but he had like 3 or 4 punts down inside like the 10-yard line. So that tells you
He's
what
just
kind
an
of
overall athlete, yeah.
Yeah, I like that about guys too. He played basketball for a while. Now I don't think he did his junior year, but I like guys that play basketball and play multiple sports and do well in multiple sports.
Yeah, basketball is always good because it utilizes a lot of the same like running techniques and things like that, like running downhill or running for a drive, layup type thing. So yeah, no, I would love to see what he could do. I mean, at this point, just empty the holster and see what bullets you have.
So with Wisconsin, it's kind of an interesting situation where we've got, they fired their offensive coordinator. Oops, took my thing there, the Wisconsin thing. But I'm trying to remember who's going to call the plays for him. It's going to be their old tight ends coach, I believe, or whoever's their tight ends coach now. So I don't know much about them, but I just feel like, and this is just totally my guess, but I feel like they're going to try to play old school Wisconsin. I think they're going to try to, ditch some of the air raid stuff and just like get back to who they are as a team. I don't know. That's just my guess, though.
The less we have to see of Malcolm Hartsock in coverage, the better. So I'm hoping that too, and I'm hoping the defense is prepared to stop the run.
Yeah, we'll see, man. They need to win this game. I feel like there's so much that rides on this game, which is so weird when it's 2 5-5 teams playing each other. But I mean, a lot is on the line for Luke Fickell too, because
I was gonna say so much on the line for both teams. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
the parallels
make
between this program and Wisconsin.
Because I mean, Wisconsin was like competing for Big Ten titles not that long ago. So I mean, if they're missing a bowl game, like people there will not be happy. And I mean, Nebraska hasn't got over the hump, but obviously people are getting pretty sick of them not doing it. So it's not going to be a good situation for either coach if they go into next season, off of a losing season this year. So
no, I can only imagine the offseason chatter now. It's been insufferable the entire year. I can't imagine another year of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully they just win on Saturday, and then they can get Cortez Mills, hopefully, and hopefully
Michael Terry, hopefully, maybe too.
Yeah, and hopefully I still have hope for Chase Lofton as well, but we'll see. I guess what happens there. I feel like that's lost a little bit of momentum, but I don't think it's.
Have you heard anything else besides his recent? You said he was going to visit Missouri and Texas A&M, was it?
Yeah, and I'm assuming he probably did one of those visits. I just haven't seen yet. Like I haven't seen.
No, I haven't seen anything either. It's been kind of radio silent.
Yeah, and I guess maybe I should check the Missouri sites or something. But usually, like Steve Wiltfong will have something like that.
Yeah.
And he did even like the last On3 update I saw that was like touching on a bunch of flips, like didn't even have anything on Chase Lofton. He just wasn't even mentioned. And Cortez Mills was, so I'm not sure. It just, maybe he's got like a visit this weekend. I don't know. Signing day's coming up though. Maybe he's gonna stick with the 1-10 Seminoles. I'm not sure.
Cortez Mills was rocking the Nebraska gear earlier this week in a workout video. So
I did see that. Do you put much stock in the practice, like when they wear gloves and stuff though? Do you put much stock in that?
Gloves, no, but I think it was a shirt he was wearing, if I'm not mistaken. So I put a little bit more stock into.
Okay, so you put more stock in the shirt than the gloves. Okay.
Yeah, because out of all the marquee programs, the Ohio States, or I don't even know who he's being recruited by necessarily, but of all the big programs, Miami was one at the time. But you wear a Nebraska shirt, you don't wear a Nebraska shirt unless you're really committed to the team. Case in point for us too. I mean, I was in the gym the other day, and the owner of the gym came in. And he was like, "You're still wearing your Nebraska sweatpants even after they're losing a little bit?" I'm like, "Yeah, I am."
I guess that's true. Yeah, I guess the shirt makes it a little less inconspicuous. So people be like, "Cortez, what are you doing, bro?" And he's like, "I'm going to Nebraska." So I don't know. Hopefully
he does, stock in it because it's a way to announce your commitment without announcing your commitment. And I'm wondering if that's one of the guys that Merritt was talking about yesterday. So
I feel like he definitely was talking about Cortez Mills, and
yeah.
actually, with what Chad Simmons said, this is worth mentioning. Which we're not really sticking to the topics that were being discussed. So I'm just going to blast that at any rate. But
Story of our lives, right?
he did say that he said Cortez Mills was going to make his decision like the week leading up to signing day or whatever he was going to decide, and like so if you're committed somewhere but you still have a decision to make, I don't think that's really a good sign for the place that you're committed to.
Well,
So
not to
I feel
mention,
like,
Brett Venables like basically came out and said like, "Oh, if the players are committed, blah, blah, blah," and then they're not really committed. Like, shut up. Coaches
oh,
would
I
leave in a
know.
second if they got a better job. See Brian Kelly.
He's always done, yeah, he's always done that. And yeah, hopefully Brian Kelly gets fired soon, because then yeah, that would be funny. I actually just think
He's a bad look for Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm
he's
ashamed.
he's starting to be a bad look for LSU, man. He's like freaking out at players, and
Yeah, and it's like, oh, players got to be coached. Well, maybe players can see right through you, Brian Kelly,
and
because
like,
we sure
yeah,
can.
that's funny. Yeah.
But I was gonna say something else with that, and I told, oh yeah, not to go on a rant on here because clearly we're not focused on the task at hand. But coaching a conference championship game while doing early signing day recruiting must be a heck of a week for coaches.
Yeah, I think they just were kind of like, I know those coaches, and that's why they wanted it later. And I think everybody was like, well, we're just gonna make the guys that win suffer, and then the rest of us are gonna get out and be done with it, and then we're not
I
gonna
don't
have to
know if I
worry
like
about
it later
recruiting.
though, especially with the expanded playoffs.
Well,
Like,
that's true. Yeah, that would be tough too.
well,
Because I mean, that was the thing too, is like with it did kind of hurt, like with some of the teams that had to go to the playoff, like in January, like other teams are focusing on recruiting, and you're like getting ready for
yeah,
postseason games. So
yeah.
I don't, but I mean, that's still going to be I mean, yeah, like at the end of the day, you do have to pay some penalties for winning, but it's okay because you've got to the playoffs, so you really don't care that much. But it
That
does make
that
it a
that
little
will be
bit
a
tougher.
recruiting tool in of itself, getting to the playoffs. So
Yeah, which is going to be, and I gotta say, man, what in the hell is up? I'm so sick, and I'm going to change the topic here, but I'm so sick of this SEC bias, because
yeah,
it's like, dude, what are you talking? Like these people that are trying to make a serious case that Tennessee should
no.
be in over Indiana, like, come on, bro, like, geez, like the games have to matter at some point, like. And they're like, Georgia's so good. Well, if we're just gonna go by what Vegas says, then let's just not even play the games. Then Nebraska would be, what would Nebraska's record be then? Because we would have beat Illinois, we would have beat UCLA. Like we'd be going to a bowl game every year if we just based everything on what Vegas says.
With the Georgia thing, though, they have the toughest strength of schedule, so I can
I mean,
understand why people are vouching for Georgia because they have had a gauntlet. But for Tennessee, they're not getting any sympathy for me.
yeah, because it's like, I mean, Georgia, at least they won at Alabama. They beat Clemson on a neutral field. I mean, they did lose to Ole Miss, and that was not a great loss. I'm
Well,
trying to
Ole
think of
Miss
their.
beat Georgia, so I mean, transitive
That's
property
true.
there.
I'm
I
trying.
don't know.
I'm trying to think of who
I'm
Georgia's
gonna
other
look.
losses to. I don't know why I can't think of this right now. Oh no, it was to Alabama. I'm a moron. They beat. I got my college football worlds confused because I was playing Georgia and lost to Alabama, but in real life, Alabama beat Georgia because the guy had the touchdown at the end of it. So, anyways, okay,
Georgia beat Tennessee. Georgia beat Texas. I mean,
yeah, that's a pretty damn good win at Texas. So
so I don't
that
know
right
how they're
there,
ranked that low. If there's anybody who should be complaining about their lower seating, I think it's Georgia. And I'm not a Georgia rah-rah Georgia guy. So
yeah, Georgia I can get, and that's like, yeah, I understand that like at some point like the eye test should play a factor, but to me, if Indiana has one loss, I think they should be in the playoff. I mean, if you're 11-1 in the Big Ten,
yeah,
and they beat, and it's not like, okay, like Michigan, I get wasn't great, but they still beat them, and they beat Nebraska by a crap ton, and they beat everybody. Like it'd be one thing if like they were like throwing up Hail Marys every week, or like teams were like missing their star players, and like that's how they were winning, and it was fluky stuff. But they've won, I think the Michigan game, which they won, I believe, by 8. That was the only game they've won that's been like fewer than 14 points. So like you got to you can't rank all these Big Ten teams in the top and then be like, well, but we don't like Indiana, so we're not going to get them. Because like what has Penn State done that Indiana hasn't done, except
nothing. Nothing.
lose a close game to Ohio State that they probably should have won. Like
I'm excited for this Saturday. I'm going to be watching that game, Ohio State, Indiana. Nice pregame meal before we get our 6th win.
it will be funny. I like the vibe you have there, Danny. It will be funny to see, because like if Indiana beats, who's really going to freak out? if Indiana beats Ohio State. It's not the Michigan people because they've done it a lot, but it's going to be Penn State. The Penn State, you're going to see so many Penn State people, like they're going to have that you know how Nebraska people have that Kurt Signetti like FOMO right now. Like the Penn State people are going to have that like in spades because James Franklin
Because
cannot
they
beat
want
Ohio
James
State.
Franklin gone.
Yeah, they just want James Franklin to beat Ohio State or
I
somebody.
feel like James Franklin and Ryan Day are kind of in the same boat. Ryan Day can't beat Michigan, and Ohio State fans want him gone for that. People want James Franklin gone because he can't beat Ohio State or basically win anything notable, so they want him gone.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think Ryan Day is going to beat Michigan next week, though, and then, but
Well,
we'll see
yeah,
if he
this is one of
wins.
the worst Michigan teams in years. Yeah,
Yeah, which would be
I
really,
hope so.
which would be
If he
really
doesn't
funny
beat
if
Michigan next week, then he's definitely going to be gone. He's definitely going to be. His
yeah,
hot seat will be. He'll be up in flames.
unless they come back and like win the Natty, which they could because it's 12-team playoff. If they won this week, see, would be the funny thing. If they lost this week, then Michigan could maybe like knock them out of the playoff next week. So I don't know.
You
Not
know
that
what?
I
I'm
think they will.
excited, and I know people are sick of Alabama, but they're getting hot right now. I'm interested to see what they do because Kalen DeBoer's won everywhere he's gone. And he's particularly good in the late season months with postseason play. So I think Alabama's getting hot at the right time.
Yeah, and that's what I like about this system is that you can kind of get hot at the right time and have a chance. So hopefully that will be Nebraska someday, but I would take getting hot and winning the next 2 games. And I do think if they win this one, they have a chance. It's like I feel the same about Michigan. If they can win this week against Northwestern and have some confidence, then they have a shot against Ohio State. And I feel like if Nebraska can win this game against Wisconsin, I feel like they will beat Iowa. Not have the chance. I feel like they will do it. They just need that belief.
They just need to get this They just need to get this bowl win thing off their back. 6 wins bowl game, and then once they get it off their back, they'll all be able to play better for the rest of the Matt Rule era, honestly, because I feel like this is a thing that's transcending coaching eras at this point.
Yeah, this is like, when you're playing like a video game and you're like on that, like it's not even the final boss, but you're just on some weird ass boss that like personally you have a hard time being, and it makes the entire game suck. And like you want to stop, like you literally want to stop playing, and like you try super hard, you yell a lot. This happens to me in Zelda sometimes, but then you finally beat the boss, like you finally beat him and you're like, yes. And then you move forward and like everything after that is just like, you see the sunshine come back up again, then the rest of the game is fun. And then you get to the boss and you're like, oh, the boss wasn't even that hard. It was just that one really annoying level. And so I'm hoping that translates to Nebraska, that this is just that one really annoying, like mid video game boss that we've been stuck on for like 10 years. And like, we're so close to taking the Nintendo 64 and chucking it in the garbage, but we're finally going to get past it. And
I miss my Nintendo 64.
I know Nintendo 64s were cool.
We're dating ourselves with these references, but yeah.
But yeah, I know. But then we're going to get hopefully to the end of the game and we won't have to restart.
You know what it's like? It's like the 86-year-old World Series drought for the Boston Red Sox. And we got close in 2003, and Aaron Boone hit the walk-off home run in Game 7 of the ALCS off Tim Wakefield. And for the older viewers, I've heard stories about Bucky Nett in the 1978 playoffs and how he ruined our chances there. So it's like the Red Sox World Series curse, because once that curse was lifted, we won in 07, we won in 13, 18. It became a lot easier to win, but just getting to the World Series and winning, that was something that, kind of loomed over the franchise for so long.
I thought you were going to say that the Aaron Boone was for the young, for the old crowd for a second. So I was like, man, that makes me feel really old. So anyway.
Well, yeah, because Aaron Boone was 21 years ago now?
Yeah, 21 years ago. Aaron bleeping Boone.
Yeah, no, Bucky Dent. I mean, to me, Aaron Boone feels like yesterday. But no, it's just you can tell that this is affecting the program. They all know what they need to do. The walls are kind of closing in, so let's just hope they win on Saturday, because I don't want it to come down to Iowa. I've just seen it come down to Iowa too many times, and I just don't want to do that again.
Yeah, I don't want it to come down to Iowa either. So hopefully they'll find a way to get a win this weekend and go from there. So we'll shoot for one of our Saturday morning chats on Saturday, so you can join us to get a little pregame on. And if you haven't already, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.